This is the WJTS News. In tonight's news, businessman Mike Braun votes in Jasper as we head into Election Day. DuBois County Sheriff's deputies nab a burglar as she watched a fire in DuBois. And Joy Holt travels to Santa Claus to talk with Town Council President John Bowen. In sports, Kurt Guxell recaps local baseball from over the weekend. Plus, WJTS Inform will be highlighting Mark Schrader, active business laureate inductee into the Junior Achievement DuBois County Business Hall of Fame. All this and more on tonight's WJTS News. Good evening. I'm Bill Potter with the WJTS News. Indiana conservation officers are investigating an off-road vehicle accident that took the life of a former Jasper man. Authorities say 26-year-old Michael Saab, a 2010 graduate of Jasper High School who was living in Martinsville, was operating his Polaris RZR side-by-side on his property off Goss Creek Road. Conservation officers say while attempting to operate the ORV downhill, the unit rolled on its side, pinning Saab underneath. They say a passenger on the ORV called 911 and attempted to remove the off-road vehicle from Saab. When EMS arrived on the scene, Saab was unresponsive. He was declared deceased a short time later. Michael Saab was the son of Gary Buzz and Nancy Saab of Jasper. The DuBois County Sheriff's Department arrested a DuBois woman Friday after identifying her while assisting the DuBois Volunteer Fire Department. 36-year-old Chastity Jones, who had an active warrant in civil court, was identified as an onlooker by county sheriff's deputies who were assisting the DuBois Volunteer Fire Department in a separate matter on Friday. Jones, a key suspect in a string of burglaries, was arrested in connection with the multiple break-ins at a residence on Hickory Grove Road in DuBois. She was transported to the DuBois County Security Center. Police say through further investigations, Jones admitted to committing multiple break-ins of the residence in question. She is facing 6 counts of burglary, 6 counts of theft, and 1 count of check fraud. The break-ins took place from November of 2017 to March of this year. The Sheriff's Department says more than $3,000 in items were stolen. Early Saturday morning, Jasper police were called to a home along the 1400 block of Dewey Street to a report of a man possibly under the influence of some type of drug. When police arrived, they encountered 22-year-old Colt Eckert of Jasper and determined that he was not actually under the influence. However, police did find Eckert was in possession of multiple hypodermic needles, a glass smoking pipe used for controlled substances, and a small metal dish and torch. Police took Eckert into custody and booked him in the DuBois County Security Center on a level 6 felony count of possession of hypodermic needles and a misdemeanor count of possession of paraphernalia. Sunday afternoon, Jasper police responded to the report of a man who was passed out in the roadway in the alley between apartments at the Camelot Inn. When arriving, they found 27-year-old Cody Lewis of Meridian, Mississippi, to be the subject in question. They took Lewis to Memorial Hospital for medical clearance. He was then lodged into the DuBois County Security Center for a charge of public intoxication. Indiana conservation officers arrested Mark Cates, age 54, of DeMont, on charges of resisting law enforcement, possession of marijuana, possession of paraphernalia, and disturbing federal ground in search of artifacts. Friday afternoon, Indiana conservation officers Zach Howerton and Lucas Patterson were on patrol in the Hoosier National Forest along State Road 37 near Leopold when they encountered Cates and a female companion who were suspected to have been illegally digging for artifacts on federal property. As the officers escorted the couple from the woods, Cates fled on foot back into the woods. Multiple agencies responded, including the Perry County Sheriff's Department, Tell City Police, Perry County EMA, and Hoosier National Law Enforcement Rangers, and a lengthy search ensued. During the search, a citizen alerted officers of a suspicious male in a driveway near a residence. Shortly afterward, Indiana Conservation Officer Lieutenant Phil Sheeter was able to take Cates, who was found to have multiple outstanding felony arrest warrants, into custody without incident. Republican U.S. Senate candidate and Jasper businessman Mike Brown was in Jasper this Monday morning to cast his vote, along with his wife Maureen, for tomorrow's May primary election at the DuBois County Annex. Brown, who is self-funding his bid for a chance at a Republican U.S. Senate seat, earned a master's degree from Harvard Business School and founded Meyer Distributing, which now has operating facilities in 36 states and employs more than 850 people. He is taking on U.S. Representatives Todd Rokita and Luke Messer in Tuesday's primary. Brown certainly feels confident about how the campaign has transpired as tomorrow's election nears.
I think I ran on the basis of being a political outsider and a business guy, and giving my two competitors a run for their money, and I think we're actually leading the race and should end up winning it. And anxious to take on Joe Donnelly, but I think the theme of my campaign all along has been we need more people that have done something in the real world where you learn those lessons and you don't need to be briefed on them because you've lived through them. And I think that's resonating across the state. I think when President Trump won back in 2016, it was clear people wanted something different. And he's been a disruptor and he's kind of shaken the system. But to be honest, it was an inspiration for me to do it. I'm going to take my own ideas and the lessons I've learned in life and building a business, and I think be a good reinforcement for his agenda. And I've got several things that I'd like to work on that I've got a special experience in, which would be healthcare and infrastructure. And we got a lot of unfinished business, so we got to secure the border and do some other things I think that especially conservatives want to see get done.
Once Brown placed his ballot this morning, he headed north to continue his campaign in the greater Indianapolis area for the remainder of the day. Brown will be holding an election review reception at Meyer Distributing's corporate headquarters in Jasper on Tuesday evening to view election results as they are made available. The public is invited to attend the event, which will begin at 6 p.m. and will be held at the company's corporate headquarters located at 2424 Cathy Lane in Jasper. Staying on the topic of the primary election on Tuesday, the Indiana Bureau of Motor Vehicles says BMV branches will extend hours of operation Tuesday to issue ID cards and driver's licenses to be used for identification at a polling place. Branches will be open Tuesday from 6 a.m. until 6 p.m. That's Election Day, as required by state law. Branches will only process new, amended, or replacement ID cards and renewed, amended, or replacement driver's licenses and learner permits. New driver's licenses and learner permits will be processed provided the customer has previously completed all required testing. Customers who are required to take a knowledge or driving skills exam to obtain or renew a license may choose to apply for a free ID card to use for voting purposes. Individuals who hold a driver's license or ID card that expired after the last general election may use the expired card as proof of identification for voting purposes. The paper interim credential issued at the license branch at the time of the transaction or after a customer has completed an internet credential transaction is acceptable for proof of identification for voting purposes. The Indiana BMV provides free state-issued ID cards for voting purposes to any unlicensed Hoosier who is a U.S. citizen who can provide proper documentation and who will be at least 18 years of age on or before the next general or municipal election. Hundreds of people gathered in downtown Terre Haute for a prayer vigil honoring a city police officer killed in a shootout with a homicide suspect. The vigil Saturday evening outside the Vigo County Courthouse came hours after many people lined the streets as a hearse took Rob Pitts' body from a hospital to a funeral home. Officials say Pitts was among 4 officers who were fired upon Friday night when confronting the suspect, who died after barricading himself inside an apartment. Rob Pitts is a 16-year veteran of the Terre Haute Police Department and was one of 4 officers who were fired upon when they approached an apartment complex Friday night to confront the suspect. Chief John Plessy said officers returned fire, wounding the suspect, who then barricaded himself inside until Special Response Team officers entered a few hours later. Police say the suspect died but haven't released his name. Pitts died at Terre Haute Regional Hospital. Pitts is the first Terre Haute police officer to die since July 11, 2011, when Officer Brent D. Long was killed while serving an arrest warrant. His services will begin with public calling hours 2 to 7 p.m. Tuesday at the Indiana State University's Hulman Center. The funeral is set for 11 a.m. Wednesday at the arena. Now stay tuned as Joy Holt talks with John Bowen, president of the Santa Claus Town Council, on 18 WJTS TV, followed by weather and sports.